conversation with an old friend and student colleague, and one of us last night was lucky enough to win in the raffle John's book. Is that person here?
And unlucky enough to win a tie.
And unlucky enough to win a tie, indeed. Indeed. But within that book, there's a photograph, and I don't know if somebody can help me with that, but there is a picture of it that we could see on screen.
Now, this is a very strange chap. Where are you, Andy? Oh, there, I can see.
What is to be done is me.
My God, save us. He was a bit of a Leninist in those days. He's kept the beard. But anyway, so in fact, I started writing pieces for The Guardian, The Scotsman, various other places, because a lot of the kids we saw were actually from Scotland. Yeah. And interestingly, we see many fewer from Scotland now than we ever did. No, it is interesting, because I think, well, Scotland is a very, very different place. Glasgow is a very different place. Yeah. I was trying desperately to crank the number of followers I had up on Twitter, and we'd got within hailing distance of 50,000. And so I said the 50,000th could come to Channel 4 News and watch the news. Right. Now, what was really sublime was that the 50,000th was a severely disabled woman with MS in a wheelchair. And she came last night. Last night was the night.
Oh,
and it was utterly fantastic. And what was really moving about it was that the really pretty squalidly uncaring community in which I operate in the media. I mean, the media is a ruthless, cutthroat outfit.
Yes, we're going to come on to that.
But in this environment, I had warned them. I'd said she's coming, and she was coming with two other MS sufferers who she'd met online. And they were young, both from Carlisle. And I mean, extraordinarily young. She was 18 and with MS, and a boyfriend who wasn't. But then there's one of our employees, a guy called Ben Cohen, who's our technology correspondent. He has MS. And I realized that there was this online MS conspiracy, which is so healthy, so fantastic. Yeah. These people are all connected up. And her life, the wheelchair-bound Margot, her life online is transformed. I mean, she has an incredible social life. A tall, gangly form in an Afghan coat, a very smelly Afghan coat, standing on a stage with his hand up like this. I think the bubble would have said occupy. And it was the moment at which we, probably about 1,000, I think, at that moment, decided to occupy the Senate block of Liverpool University. And the thing that connects us is that in the front row there's an extremely shaggy-looking individual who is no other than Andy Lowe. And I haven't really seen him between now and then, because I was sent down as a result of this. He managed to survive. But this was a protest. Everybody was revolting in 1970, and it was very unfashionable not to be revolting. We spent quite some time trying to find the right things to revolt about. But we were revolting about the university's investments in South Africa. And anyway, I mean, that is what connects us.
Indeed.
You know, we may think things are getting tougher and our cash is running out and the rest of it. There are other things coming up that can deeply affect what we can achieve.
When we were speaking on the phone last week, kicking some things around, we spoke about the Baby P affair and the role that perhaps the media and government had in the way in which that panned out. Have you got
very, very dark day, I think. I mean, leaving aside the facts of the case, which of course were left standing largely,
yes.
The conspiracy almost wasn't, of course, it was naivety and ignorance, but the way in which the media and the government sort of came together to dump on social services without any kind of understanding of the hinterland and the circumstances in which services are delivered and the rest of it. And I mean, I think it exposed two things. One, you know, authorities, the ease with which authority simply detaches itself from any strand of a responsibility, and the ease with which the media are prepared to go with the flow. And I think one of the things all of us have to understand in each of our different circumstances is that you can never exaggerate the ignorance of the media sent to investigate any story in your patch. You don't need me to tell you that, because you encounter it. You read of instances, either in somebody else's patch that you know or your own patch, and you simply can't connect it with what you actually know of the delivery of services and the rest of it. And it's very difficult to see quite why this has happened. And I think there's a degree of guilt. The collapse of the extended family means that people know secretly that there are all sorts of familial obligations they have that they don't actually fulfill.
And it happens in big and small ways. I mean, my own staff last week had to face a headline in a local paper, "Left to die." It was a concatenation of nonsense. But the problem is...
But it rings a bell.
But what we get is we get a big headline.
People think, yeah, Christ, that's going to happen to me.
Yes, and the following week I get a letter published on page 39 or 94 as private, I would say. You know, it doesn't have the impact. So kind of where I wanted to go with this is, you know, how do we as a profession, how do you think we can improve our public impact? And
Well, I think that the saviour is in what I call the golden age of media. When I started in radio and in television, well, radio less, but in television, I would sit there and I could say something and there would be no return traffic. There couldn't be. There was no mechanism for getting in touch with me. If you rang the switchboard, they'd say, "I'm sorry, I can't put you through." Or you occasionally received letters in green ink underlined in red. Those were the really fervent people who wanted to get in touch with you, but that would be 3 or 4 times a month. So fundamentally, you had a completely one-way traffic. Now, it's absolutely deluged with two-way. I mean, my working life now is at least a quarter of it, probably half, is spent actually answering emails, responding to tweets, whatever. I mean, there's something going on all the time, and you have to be part of it. You have to be part of the online world in a very big way.
We've watched in Tahrir Square this year, and we've watched you in Japan with that great tragedy there, but you must have observed the ground has shaken here in Scotland.
Absolutely, and it's extremely uplifting. It's an extraordinary thing, you know. Andy and I are both Sassenachs, and we're old enough to have been around south of the border when independence was a big sort of scare thing in the 70s. And we shivered. We did, oh my God, the breakup of the United Kingdom, shit. Well, what do we do about that? And now, genuinely, I think people from the south are now feeling envious, actually envious, of focused leadership, of a purpose, and of a delivery. I mean, you know, it may have been coalition, it may have been all the rest of it, but the sense you have south of the border, given the totemic issues which have been pursued quite successfully, may well hit the buffers with the cuts and the rest of it, but nevertheless, they've had a period of achieving fabulous things on tuition fees, on elderly care, on social care generally, and that is envied by people in the south. And they want to know how it's done, and of course it's done in part by being so much closer to the population you're serving. You know, you'd just imagine Whitehall actually administering Carlisle. You know, I mean, it's just mad. It's mad. And we are the most centralized country on the European, in Europe. And suddenly somebody has done something in Scotland which has just worked. It has worked to give people a sense of identity, of belonging, and of a sense of being close to, you know, everybody in Scotland knows everybody, you know, in the power system anyway. I've always been amazed. It's an extraordinary small family for 5 million. You know, and it speaks to a kind of social connectivity which just does not exist in England. There's a bit of it in Wales, but and people in England are going to be searching for a mechanism to find the right unitary authority to reflect what you're achieving in Scotland. People are not in any way, I would argue, scared about the breakup of the United Kingdom. They are watching with huge interest. Yeah. Don't let us down.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that, to the news. So in a world that we inhabit where we are perforce politically neutral, we serve all parties, we
Oh, we have all that in common.
Inscrutably manage all of our relations in relation to discretion and confidentiality. It's an absolute breath of fresh air to talk to you and to have this debate this morning. So thank you very much on behalf of us all.
Thank you.